Another day, another bad take from people in the industry who get paid to chronicle the very industry itself. Divinity is the newest game announced from Larian Studios. You know the people who made Divinity Original Sin or Baldur's Gate 3 is likely more known to most of you these days. I played both Divinity Original Sin games, beat them both, beat Baldur's Gate 3 as well. I like the first Original Sin more than the second one myself, mostly because the second one's final act is kind of a mess in my opinion, but it's still a great game nonetheless. But generally speaking, the DNA of what Larian had accomplished from Divinity made sense when playing Baldur's Gate 3. It felt like a natural evolution, with its almost old-school BioWare charm in terms of how they went about the cutscenes and the characters and all the other stuff and more. I don't need to tell you that Baldur's Gate 3 did well for them. It was full of player choice, reactivity, and much more. But during the Game Awards 2025, there was a segment where actors dressed as peasants began swarming the stage, and some of them started to get lifted into the air, which was kind of cool to see. And then cut to a trailer, a very, very dark trailer with really mature themes that I can't even show most of it in all honesty on YouTube, because otherwise this video will be 100% age restricted. But let's just say that this trailer for this new Divinity game, it had blood and gore and lots of you know what in it. Yeah, YouTube censorship is really annoying to get around, I know. But eventually, it was revealed that the game was indeed called Divinity. Obviously, fans went wild. Larian was returning to their roots with their newfound glory and hype from Baldur's Gate 3, and this would be an obvious slam dunk from the developer, but one website believes that it's the wrong move to make. In fact, they go as far as to say that nobody really cares about Divinity as a property, and that Larian should do something else instead. The website in question here is PC Gamer. Here's the article. Is a return to the Divinity series the right move for Larian after Baldur's Gate 3? Our team of RPG fans is divided, as they say in the opening here. But is it the right move? Are we excited for a new step in the Divinity series? Or would another Dungeons & Dragons game been more welcome? Would we have rather seen a new setting altogether? So one of their senior guides writers at PC Gamer, their name is Sean Martin, steps in first, stating that his opinion by saying that we should let Larian cook and wait to see, which yes, I agree. But then the obvious bias starts to show pretty much where, as seen here, Sean Martin of PC Gamer then claims even if it somehow ends in a poorer game, as they put it, he still wants to see what Larian can do, which is kind of insane to me considering this is Larian Studios we're talking about. But also, subscribe and like the video, it helps a lot, thank you. But you guys do realize that the only reason why Baldur's Gate 3 was as good as it was is because of what Larian did originally with Divinity, right? There is no Baldur's Gate 3 and its reactive world and the systems that it has without what Larian laid the foundation with when it came to Original Sin. That's not even a maybe, that's just the truth. Baldur's Gate 3 is quite literally Divinity Original Sin 3. It just has the much better added element of actual character angles when they speak to each other. Again, like an old school BioWare game like Dragon Age Origins, for example. God, I missed that game. But beyond that, to keep it simple at least, that's why Baldur's Gate 3 for me anyways was so good. It's because, yes, it's Larian. And really, it seems like only Larian could do what they do with these sorts of games these days. But I find it rather insulting that PC Gamer already believes that Divinity is somehow a worse setting than Dungeons & Dragons, when this just comes off as people who've never played these games in the first place to me. Divinity, in case you don't know, is a very mystical world. Yes, it has dragons and magic. It's called Source, and they have all the usual standards that you know as well. But at its heart are these gods that also dictate everything. There's ancient races, there's lizard kings and party members from a king who gets turned into this eternal demon hunter, or there's a young woman who has a devil in her brain. Obviously, I don't want to spoil much of anything that really happens in either Original Sin games, as you should play them yourselves. They are very good games. They're also great if you want a co-op game with your girlfriend or boyfriend or your friend or something, as both these games, in case you don't know, they can be played fully in co-op from start to finish too. But I hate this notion of people blindly seeing more value in one IP over another simply because they know more about one over the other, I guess. It also just shows obvious hubris to me, and honestly also a lack of knowledge on the subject. If you ask me, Divinity is great. Yes, the games are a bit bit more lighthearted at times, but they are still dark when they need to be too. There's plenty of sacrifice and dark magic and all that stuff. I especially love the character of Malady. This is her on screen here, by the way. She's like a half-demon elven woman. She's really cool, and her VA is great too. Another character that I really loved was Jahan, this guy here on screen. He's a companion in the first original Sin game. He's like a 1,000-year-old king who has like a dark past that you uncover as you play that game. He also wields water magic, and he's just awesome. Again, I don't want to spoil him further though, in case you want to play yourselves, obviously, but look, the point is that Divinity is ripe when it comes to storytelling. And again, this is Larian Studios, okay? It's their IP. This all makes sense to me what's happening. It's sort of like how BioWare made Dragon Age and Mass Effect. Both of those IPs actually came about because BioWare wanted their own IPs, instead of having to share their revenue and such with another company. Like Mass Effect was originally a Knights of the Old Republic sequel game, actually, in case you didn't know that. Until it wasn't anymore, because BioWare then just took their ideas for what the KOTOR sequel was going to be, and then they just made it into their own series instead, and voila, that's how you had Mass Effect. Same with Dragon Age. It was birthed from working on Baldur's Gate themselves in the past too, so it's better to look at Divinity in like a similar vein to that. But you should also know that Divinity, like as a series and franchise, is even older than both Mass Effect or Dragon Age, so this is not some new world. Instead, it's a franchise and long-running series that Larian as a studio is heavily invested in, and they know like the back of their hands. There's really no way this game will be bad, knowing their pedigree now as well, but here's where PC Gamer just kind of loses the plot in my opinion, where their next employee, this Robin Valentine, a senior editor, just straight up says, as you can see here, who cares about Rivellon, the setting of Divinity, which is insane to me, that these people are practically now writing off Larian of all people, because they're what, not doing a Baldur's Gate 4, but instead their own franchise? Like, here's what PC Gamer had to say about it. Don't get me wrong, I love Larian's RPGs, and I also think it was the right move for the studio to work on its own IP going forward. But while I love both original Sin games, I just don't think there's anything interesting about Rivellon as a setting. They continue. Not only is it fundamentally a pretty generic fantasy world, it also has very little consistency of tone or style. To me, original Sin 2 felt like it was in a different world to the previous game, and both are disconnected from the other games in the Divinity series. It just feels like a soup of fantasy tropes that Larian drops whatever it likes into each time. This is a series where for one entry they decided dragons with jetpacks were a thing and then never mentioned it again. I mean, you could make that same argument for Baldur's Gate as well though, which invalidates PC Gamer's own argument here. Objectively speaking, Dungeons & Dragons was languishing in utter obscurity for years because Wizards of the Coast ruined their own IP with political activism and messaging. It really wasn't until Larian came in with their writers with their idea for what they wanted to do with that world, and then they did D&D finally, and then they raised it to any sort of prominent role in pop culture again. The only other time like D&D really mattered in the past few years was with Stranger Things, but again, Wizards didn't write that, so again, like they have nothing to do even with the things that are good in their own series. It's kind of ridiculous. But now D&D and Wizards, I guess, are like, they're just clinging onto that relevancy from BG3 like their lives depend on it, and they kind of do. Look at how hard Wizards has pushed characters like Shadowheart, Lae'zel, Astarion, and more since BG3 has come out. They have plenty of figurines available already to buy on their store alongside other merch featuring Larian's D&D characters specifically that they created. They even have slop like Funko Pops of like Shadowheart, for example, too. Like all of these characters were again not created by Wizards. They were made by Larian Studios. The very same studio that PC Gamer is now claiming has a boring world with no identity because they are comparing their last masterwork to their previous works, which are also great too, by the way. Which is to say that it's very obvious that Larian will be taking that know-how and knowledge and experience from Baldur's Gate 3 now into Divinity. There's a reason why the game is not called Original Sin 3, because the way I interpreted what Larian has done here with Divinity is simple. This is the new standard, if you will, their new magnum opus, the start of the new era of their definitive dark fantasy RPG series. It's sort of like how The Witcher was very popular. Yes, absolutely, like don't get me wrong, it was, but it didn't explode in popularity across the world until once CD CDPR made those games, right? Especially Witcher 3, as we all know. It's better to think of Divinity in a similar vein. Sure, there were other Divinity games and books and all that in the original Sin sub-series, which did very well for them, but I'll get into that later. But this is now the Divinity game, the one they always wanted to make but couldn't, either due to budget or something else and more. So to now say that the entire game is pointless because it's not Dungeons and Dragons, it just tells me that these access media types, for the millionth time, don't understand what the core audiences of video games want these days, which is, let's be real, not a surprise at all. Like, listen to this. It's a bit long, but let me read it for you from PC Gamer on Divinity. For a while, I just accepted that as a developer, it was much stronger on interesting mechanics and interactions than world building. But then Baldur's Gate 3 came along with some of the best sense of place of any D&D game. It made the Forgotten Realms come alive. So it seems like Larian does have the expertise these days to craft a really immersive RPG world. I'd much rather see those talents put to work on a completely new setting, with a more interesting premise and without any of the baggage of Divinity. Particularly a shift of genre could have been really refreshing. Imagine all that interesting immersive sim-like design in a sci-fi world, for example. Hopefully this new game will be enough of a reboot of the Divinity setting to get me on board with it. And I'm sure either way I'll still really enjoy the game, but I can't help wishing we were getting more of a clean slate. But you literally just deconstructed and invalidated your own statement without even realizing it, PC Gamer, you morons. You started your own paragraph off by saying that you didn't care for D&D either until Baldur's Gate 3 came along and changed everything. In your own words, you even said it made the Forgotten Realms come alive. So you admit that it wasn't even D&D as a franchise that you were necessarily drawn to either, because the same problems apply that you are also pushing onto Divinity, that D&D was also generic too. I mean, it's also the bog standard for fantasy RPG stuff after all, right? Wizards, dwarves, elves, magic, all the usual stuff. But you morons admit that the reason why it was elevated was because of Larian Studios coming in and then doing their spin on that series, which fundamentally then confirms that regardless of the franchise that they, as in Larian, are working on, they can, objectively, through talent and writing, make you care about things you obviously did not care even a little bit about before, right? You guys said it yourself. And so with the same mentality in mind, then, by definition, wouldn't Divinity then be just as good, if not better, than Baldur's Gate 3 then? Doubly so, because the same people own and created the world now in which they're creating going forward. This just shows me that, again, game journalists are just ill-equipped to have any take beyond room temperature at the best of times these days. Like, be so for real, these same people likely didn't even care for The Witcher or really even knew what it was until CDPR made Witcher 3. Like, it's the same thing every time. The next PC Gamer slop opinion is from Andy Chalk, who says, as seen here, that no one cares about Divinity's world of Rivellon. People do care about Larian though. Again, just wild. The fact they then say this. So now Larian gets to come at its most prized possession with bottomless resources, a sterling reputation, and a massive built-in audience. Most of which probably couldn't care less about Divinity, probably haven't even heard of it, sorry but it's true, but also care very much about what the Baldur's Gate 3 guys are getting up to next. Like, dude, this is just crazy how disrespectful and like just full of misinformation these so-called journalists are being these days, man. Like, in case you don't know, okay, Divinity Original Sin 1 sold about 2.5 million units so far, which was back when Larian was very unknown to a lot of people at the time and not as well known for the, the whole CRPG reactive world that they are now, obviously. So selling what they did on a Kickstarter game, no less, back then was really impressive for a studio their size. And Divinity Original Sin 2, which, by the way, when you're watching this video, Larian actually just released a free update for next-gen consoles for that game, in case you didn't know that. So if you wanted to play Divinity Original Sin 2 at like 60 FPS and all that other stuff on your PS5 or your Xbox, or I guess just replay it on PC, it's also coming to Switch 2 as well. You can now go and do that right now if you want to, and you should, because it's a great game. But again, nobody seems to care about Divinity apparently. Right, is that why Divinity Original Sin 2 sold a total of 7.5 million copies or so since release? Here's the CEO talking to Eurogamer a few years back, where he gets asked about sales and then confirms that Original Sin 2 eclipsed the first by a massive margin. As seen here, their CEO clarifies in his statement and confirms that Original Sin 2 sold about 3 times, if not more, than the first game. So if that's true, which I mean, he's the CEO, so yeah, probably, it means that Original Sin 2 has sold somewhere near 7.5 million to maybe even 8 million units. And again, this is from a few years ago, could be even more now, which again, for a team their size, which is also privately owned if you didn't know that, and doesn't have investors like public ones, I mean, that they need to answer to like other companies, this now makes Divinity Original Sin 2 objectively a massive success, especially for the scale and the size of Larian at the time when they were doing that. But PC Gamer said nobody cares or knows what Divinity is. Yeah, that's why Divinity Original Sin 2 has outsold plenty of other Western RPGs around it that also released during that time, that are also flagship series. But trust me, bro, nobody cares about it because it isn't Baldur's Gate. That's just a crazy take, dude. Even OpenCritic and Game Rant reported on the free upgrade to Original Sin 2, and they called it one of gaming's highest rated RPGs ever. But how can that be? PC Gamer and its staff just said that nobody cares about Divinity. How could they lie to us like this? Well, you're telling me that the game series, which has, as seen here, a 93 on Metacritic with an overwhelmingly positive rating from fans, is a game that nobody knows about, that has sold in the top millions now, that also has a free update if you own the base game to play. Incredible. I thought no one knew what Divinity was, though. Oh, right. It's because the usual gaming journalists don't know what they're talking about. For the 11,000th time this year alone, to nobody's real surprise. Look, the Divinity Original Sin games are quite literally Baldur's Gate 3, but you just don't have the zoomed in character performances when they're talking, which, let's be honest, objectively, if they did have that in the game, it would be even better, but it is what it is, okay? Either way, Original Sin as a series, those games are awesome, especially the first one. I just have a soft spot for it myself. Apparently, this Divinity sequel, or standalone game more like, by Larian, has rumors that it might even be an action RPG. I'm not going to confirm that. That is just rumors. But knowing Larian, I would honestly wager they'll just implement the Original Sin BG3 battle system into their game so that if you want to play it as a CRPG, you can. But wouldn't it be crazy if you could also play it as an action RPG too? If they do that, that'll be insanely goated to the man, not even gonna lie. But I'm sure when Divinity releases and it allows for different playstyles or something else, the usual suspects will come out of the woodworks and cry out and say, you shouldn't expect this in the future from everyone. Of course not, because Larian is built different. As of right now, as seen here, Original Sin 2 has also shot up the charts again due to Divinity's trailer. The current ranking, as of this video being made anyways, as you can see, is number 124 on Steam charts for Original Sin 2, which isn't shabby for a game that is 8 years old at this point, I think, somewhere around there. Regardless, it shows that there is absolutely an appetite for a game series that PC Gamer thinks nobody cares or knows about, apparently. It just kind of comes off like these gaming journalist websites still believe they're somehow the arbiters of what should be considered accepted or not these days, as if we need them to okay what we can or cannot enjoy based on their opinions and recommendations alone. If you went by this article by the team at PC Gamer, mind you, not one person but multiple, and I guess they all signed off on hitting send on this article in the first place, you would believe that Divinity was terrible, that Larian was somehow making a mistake when it was anything but that. This is why gaming journalists aren't respected, because of stupid stuff like this, as Video Games Chronicle reported in October 2025 even, that around 1,200 gaming journalists have left the games industry behind in recent years. Oh no, the horror, how could they do that? This means that the global pool of gaming journalists have decreased by around 25%, with about 600 journalists walking away in 2025 alone. Gee, I wonder why that would happen. Probably because they, hate their core audiences, write stupid, misinformed hit pieces attacking games that people love and play and believe that their word is law or something over others. Even I've had gaming journalists come after me plenty of times too. They failed, but they tried is the point. I still remember when I owned the CDPR CEO when he said that his company didn't push DEI, then I proved him wrong in a video. And then when he said that, tons of websites like GamesRanks and more all tried to label me as wrong until I released a video proving them wrong. Did they ever apologize? Of course not. They then also, by the way, quickly deleted their articles and then pretended, it never happened in the first place. But I remember. Here's the deleted page that GameRanks has now of that article that they wrote on me. Here's the article they did have on me, or the link at least, before they deleted it, because they were wrong, by the way. So thanks, GameRanks, for trying to dogpile on me, you bootlicking losers. But also here's Games Radar, DualShockers, MSN, and even TheGamer.com, who all wrote hit pieces on me and then deleted these articles Once I proved them wrong, not only with evidence, but it also led to a community note on the CDPR CEO's post about me too. Again, so I am never going to feel sorry for these people if they leave the industry behind because they're all liars anyways. We would all be better off with less gaming journalists just existing because most they don't even play video games anymore, dude. If they're unironically sending articles to the internet like the one that I'm tearing apart in this video, it just kind of proves how monumentally moronic these types can be more often than they're not. Nobody cares about Divinity. You mean the series with 2 games in that sub-franchise that sold like 10 million copies combined on a shoestring budget even? What even is gaming journalism anymore? Like, look, the point here is that these websites are dumb plenty of the time. We already know that. Even Games Radar here says that you can play the Divinity games, but you can also just play Baldur's Gate 3, and that's enough. Oh man, listen, all right, if you want the most out of Divinity when it comes out, like whenever it does come out, probably 2027 or something like that, now is probably the time for you to go pick up Original Sin 1 and 2, like on whatever you play on, I guess, especially the second one, because again, it has that free next-gen upgrade, and just go play them, enjoy them, learn about its world and its lore and its characters, so that when Divinity does come out, you'll be better off than these gaming journalists who don't even play these games anyways that they talk about. Overall, man, the message of this video is that these morons are being disrespectful to Larian Studios, and it comes off even worse when we're in a world that is just littered in AAA slop and expensive live service titles. To think it's a good idea to punch down at a company in Belgium making cool RPGs that also, you know, don't nickel or dime you while giving you huge reactive worlds, it just comes across as awful to me. You gotta be better than this gaming journalist. I know you can't, but you can at least, you know, make an attempt. But what do you guys think? Should Larian have had another Baldur's Gate game, or does Divinity entice you, or should they have done something else entirely? Sound off in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Nobody cares about Divinity. Nobody cares about PC Gamer. How about that, you smooth-brained fools?